Tonight, 5 years after a 4-year-old was allegedly given a death blow to the head by his stepmother, one activist laments that it continues to be justice delayed and justice denied, and to add insult to injury, lack of reform in the Department of Human Services. The Prime Minister is called upon to explore other options as opposed to mandatory quarantine fees, and the Health Department admits it's under much strain from responding to the dengue outbreak and COVID-19 simultaneously. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovely St. Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Friday, the 9th of October, 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. On Friday, the 9th of October 2015, the country was in a state of collective shock and sadness as it was announced that 4-year-old Milan Ferdinand had died. It was about 5 days after he was admitted to the hospital with serious head injuries. A post-mortem result revealed that the 4-year-old boy from Dennery had died as a result of severe brain damage and head injury due to blunt force trauma. Also noted were multiple blunt force traumas about the body. On Friday, the 16th of October 2015, police arrested and detained the boy's father and his stepmother in connection with his death. His mother claimed that she had noticed marks of violence on his body and reported to the Department of Human Services multiple times that she felt her son was being abused. At the time, the Director of Human Services, Elizabeth Lewis, stated that only one report had been made to her department and that it had been investigated. She said a medical doctor determined that the issue was not deemed serious after an examination. Milan's stepmother, Kashama William Ferdinand, was charged with his murder and also ill-treatment. His father, Marlon Ferdinand, was charged with ill-treatment, neglect, and abandonment. The case is still ongoing, and according to the president of Raise Your Voice St. Lucia, it is a disturbing example of justice delayed being justice denied in St. Lucia.
This case is a sad case. And it is a reflection of the lack of justice in St. Lucia. It is a reflection of the broken justice system in St. Lucia. It is a reflection of the attitudes and behavior of public servants that do not have any accountability. Because this child was removed from her mother's home because the Department of Human Services said that the mother was leaving them in the house by themselves. They put him with his father and stepmother without doing a review, a report, an assessment of where they were sending him. He was beaten to death.
Series says the death of a 4-year-old on the watch of social services should have led to significant reforms and improvements in the department as well as the justice system. She says 5 years later, it is as if his death meant nothing.
The trial has been dragging for quite some time. At the trial, there were instances where when you listen to them, you would think that the mother was responsible for this child death. So this is a very good example of lack of justice. This is a very good example of the fact that the justice system is broken. This is a very good example that the public servants will endorse and enable anything to keep their jobs and their positions, and poor people continue to suffer. Milan Ferdinand should be an example for us in St. Lucia. That's what we should not do in the justice system and the social services.
Back in 2015, the Department of Human Services had said that child protection is everyone's business and that pointing fingers of blame at the department for the 4-year-old's death was not the answer. Sealy's continues to challenge those statements. In other news, the Ministry of Health has admitted that it is a daunting task dealing with the dengue outbreak as well as COVID-19. 503 cases of dengue fever and 1 death have been recorded on island for 2020. On Friday, National Epidemiologist Dr. Michelle Fossois, Medical Officer of Health Dr. Glensford Joseph, and Chief Environmental Officer Parker Ragananan spoke with the media and addressed the many concerns relating to the outbreak of dengue on island.
The Ministry of Health in St. Lucia is fighting a dual battle with COVID-19 and dengue fever. To date, St. Lucia has recorded 28 COVID-19 cases and no deaths, and as of September, 503 confirmed cases of dengue fever and 1 death. On Friday, during a press conference, Medical Officer of Health Dr. Glensford Joseph admitted that dealing with a pandemic and a viral illness has been strenuous on the Ministry of Health.
Within the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we are prepared and we'll always be ready, irrespective of the circumstances, to manage these situations, because that's what the Ministry of Health and Wellness is there for. To ensure the health and safety of the nation. So when you think about the strenuous nature, yes, because of limited human resource, among other things, but we are prepared to manage.
Dr. Joseph explained that while the two illnesses may have some similarities and the general public may perhaps mistake the two, medical professionals will be able to distinguish and probably diagnose between the two. He went on to add that the public should play their role in ensuring that they protect themselves from both COVID-19 and dengue fever in an effort to ensure that medical professionals are available to tend to serious cases that present themselves. Chief Environmental Officer Parker Ragnanan clarified that while there may be concerns about whether the chemicals being used to kill the mosquitoes are healthy, members of the public need to understand that in order to keep the illness under control, chemicals must be used.
We have to use chemicals, but it has to be used in a very sustainable way. And any overuse of chemical, one would cause resistance. And we've seen that at the household level and in many communities. Because many times you had a complaint that I'm using this chemical at home, this insecticide, and it's not effective. It causes this cockroach or this mosquito to become dizzy. You see it on the floor, and then after a while it gets back to full strength. One of the things that has happened is using a prolonged type of insecticide can cause resistance. And so we have been doing resistant testing in many parts of St. Lucia.
National Epidemiologist Dr. Michelle Fossois explained that the confirmed cases do not show a holistic picture of how many people in St. Lucia have the virus, and reminded members of the public to protect themselves by following the various rules and protocols that have been established by the Ministry of Health. Dengue fever is endemic to St. Lucia and cases are recorded all throughout the year. However, the numbers peak during the rainy season. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, is not taking a definitive stance on the issue of returning nationals having to foot their quarantine bill, but he says the bigger issue with the move is the lack of consultation and proper planning on the government's part. He is adamant that questions on where the monies that were allocated by the IMF were put to should be addressed, and says there are many other options that the government can explore instead of forcing returning nationals to dish out money. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
Since the announcement that effective October 15th, all returning nationals will have to foot the bill for their mandatory quarantine, there have been many questions regarding the rates. Leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, has added his voice to that of the masses. He says there are many other options that the government could have explored before deciding that a fee would have to be paid.
I am saying that there should be consultation. I'm saying the government should inform people how the IMF COVID response money was spent. That's important. And you may recall also that when the government spoke about COVID, I made a point about quarantine. I said about quarantine, and I was laughed at. Do you know that St. Jude has quarantine facilities? The St. Jude buildings, there are quarantine facilities there. Did the government look into the use of these buildings? And I think that the government should look into it, have some further discussion, and possibly, as I said, open it for tender. You may have got it. You may have got some small hotels who would have done it at a cheaper rates.
Pierre says, as with everything else that is being done in St. Lucia, the current government administration refuses to consult with the people whom their decisions will affect. He says, given the strong opposition being expressed by members of the public, it may have severe economic drawbacks for the country.
We must always remember that returning nationals play an important part in the economic life of the country because they are abroad, they work, and their remittances come from abroad. And there are many people in St. Lucia who actually live off what they get from people who are not living in the country. So you must take it in that context. When they return, and you put that charge on them, you're actually reducing the amount of money that they will spend or the amount of money that they will give their friends and relatives. So you must look at it from that angle. The second angle you must view it from is the angle of consultation. Similar to the COVID bill, the government refuses to consult, to discuss with people these drastic policies. Did they discuss it with people in the diaspora?
He says the government should hold back, consider its other options, and perhaps consult with people who will be affected by this move.
There are nationals returning who will not be able to afford it. They will not be able to afford the $90. They can't. Because they've been affected by COVID themselves. Most of them, they probably are not working. They can't afford it. The government should have consulted, and a better situation would have come out. I think the government should again reconsider and look and speak to people, talk to people. I think what I'm saying to the government is that bring all the affected parties on the table or to the table, let's have a discussion.
He says the government needs to remember that it must always put people first. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
There are still ongoing complaints from workers at the Castries Constituency Council, CCC, regarding late salary payments. The National Workers Union says it is still receiving complaints from its membership and is trying hard to establish contact with the CCC to iron out the situation. The communications manager at the CCC, Jason Hollingshead, says the cash flow issues have been a long-standing problem for CCC.
For the past few months, the Castries City Council has had many issues meeting its obligation of paying staff to the point where a tripartite meeting was held with the CCC, National Workers Union, and the local government, and suggestions were put forward to have the CCC's finances audited. On Friday, the Secretary General of the National Workers Union, Johan Haywood, explained that they have been hearing word once again that some members have not been paid and the union is trying to rectify that issue as soon as possible.
And we continue to receive reports as it relates to late payment of salaries for the daily paid employees that we represent in terms of the pay dates every fortnight. We have been trying to arrange a meeting with the representatives of the CCC. Hopefully we should get that going sometime next week so that we can at least get a status update from them as it relates to the whole question of salaries, the way forward in terms of the payments of salaries, because we still have a few issues trying to deal with as it relates to the third-party agencies or the lending agencies that the employees have loans with. Some of these agencies are contacting the employees as it relates to outstanding loan payments.
On the other hand, earlier this week, the Press and Communications Officer in the Office of the Mayor, Jason Hollingshead, told Hot 7 that while the council is still faced with some challenges, they are in a better position than what obtained 3 months ago. By his estimation, the CCC is almost back to normal.
That issue still exists. That is how council generates the funds through tax collections, roadside vendors, and other entities within the city. But with that said, there are still challenges, I could say, when it comes to the payment of workers. However, we're far from what obtained right directly after COVID. We're better off. So I'm not sure where that comment came about, but I know that we're on target and we're on stream and things are back to normal at council.
Haywood says the bargaining bodies are still awaiting word from the officials for our local government on the meeting that took place 3 months ago, and they are hoping to sit down with executives of the council in the coming week.
Yes, we had the tripartite discussion with the Ministry of Local Government back in July of this year. That too, we were expecting some sort of response from the government on it. We have not received that response from them as yet. As many persons would recall, we more or less called for some sort of in detailed assessment of the finances of the CCC, because this seems to be a perennial issue, and unless the problem is not arrested, it's going to continue, and I'm sure nobody wants that to happen. So we're going to be having that discussion. We've been attempting to contact the CEO's office now for the last day or 2 days. We have not been able to get through as yet, but hopefully we can have that discussion sometime next week and see how best we can get from them where exactly they are and how exactly they intend to move forward to sort out that problem.
The financial issues at the Castries City Council has been a long-standing one, and unions say they will do everything within their power to ensure the workers they represent are compensated for their labor. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, Opposition Leader Philip J. Pierre tells the UWP to mind its own business following criticisms about the party's national protests being much ado about nothing. Dr. Ralph Gonzalez says he is ready to rumble as he rings the election bell. A respected regional analyst predicts a narrow victory either way. And your thank you messages to teachers who have toiled tirelessly amid these challenging COVID-19 times on the occasion of Teacher Appreciation Week. That and more after the break.